Hi everybody, my name is Tiffany and welcome back to Just a Dream Away. In today's video I'm talking about The Brave by James Bird. This is the group read this year for middle grade March, and I'll put the hosts for middle grade March in the video description below so you can check out their videos and more about middle grade March. So this book I really hated. I apologize in advance that this video is going to be very rambling. I had a very difficult time trying to organize my thoughts about this book because of the racism and ableism in it, and because it is so harmful. And honestly, I think a lot of the messages in this book are dangerous even. So basically this is about a 12-year-old boy named Colin. He has some kind of counting compulsion. The author has referred to it in interviews as OCD, but it is not ever given any kind of name or specific diagnosis in the book. It's just called his condition or his numbers condition, his counting issue, things like that. But he has a counting compulsion that kind of forces him to count all of the letters in anything that's spoken to him and say the number of letters before replying. So if somebody says, "Hi, Colin," he counts hi is 2 letters, Colin is 6. So a total that's 8 letters, and he'll say 8, "Hi, how are you?" or whatever. So this has caused him a lot of problems in school. He's actually been kicked out of multiple schools. He has no support from the adults in his life, and has been bullied a lot. And he lives with his dad. His father is white, but his mother is Ojibwe, and he does not know his mom. He has grown up completely, like, with no knowledge whatsoever of his native heritage, of indigenous cultures or peoples. He doesn't even know the word Ojibwe until page 30-something. 37, I think? Yeah, page 37. So he doesn't know anything about native peoples or about Ojibwe culture specifically, until he is sent to live with his mom on the Fond du Lac Reservation in Minnesota, because he's been kicked out of another school after getting in a fight because of his counting compulsion. So his dad sends him to live with his mom, who he's never met, never had any contact with since he was born. And in Minnesota, he meets a girl who lives next door to him, to his mom's house, named Orinda, and she firmly believes that she is turning into a butterfly, that she is transforming and going through a metamorphosis, turning from a girl into a butterfly. But she is disabled. She uses a cane and a wheelchair. And I'm just going to give you a heads up, this review is going to have spoilers. I can't really talk about all of the problems in this book and what's wrong with it and why the content isn't okay, and the racism and ableism in it, without giving spoilers. So just a heads up, this review will have spoilers. It is eventually revealed that Orinda has ALS and is terminally ill, but she believes she is turning into a butterfly, and I will get to more about that in a minute. So in case you don't know, I am Native, I am Indigenous, I am Chilwell Hakanataway, so I'm not Ojibwe, but I am Native, and I have, you know, connections, like, to my culture and community. I don't, like, Colin's been raised completely separated from that. He doesn't really know that he's Native even, until the events of this book. I don't know how to explain further that I'm Chilwell Hakanataway, not Ojibwe, but I am Native. And then also I have OCD. I have obsessive compulsive disorder. I do have counting compulsions, but nothing like what's described in this. I don't count the letters people and what people speak to me, or like blurt out numbers of anything I count. And I am also physically disabled and I use a wheelchair. So I don't have ALS though. So I kind of have similar characteristics to a lot of the characters in this book and like the representation that's supposed to be in this book, but not the exact same things, if that makes sense. But I found the Native representation and the disability representation in this for both Colin's counting compulsion or OCD or whatever it's supposed to be, and Orinda's ALS and use of mobility aids to be very problematic and really totally misrepresentative. So I guess I'll kind of start with the Native representation. This book was full of stereotypes, and if it had been about Colin, because he was raised away from his heritage and like separated from his mom, he had internalized all these stereotypes that are common in society and that many people do believe about Native peoples, and then he had like unlearned that through the book, then I think that actually could have been really good. Unfortunately, that's not what happens in this. I feel like it just kind of reaffirmed all of the stereotypes that are considered more positive stereotypes. These are still harmful stereotypes. It's just the more, the stereotypes of more positive traits. So like being in touch with nature and being wise and noble and stoic, and I guess not stoic exactly, but like the like wise, in touch with nature kind of, almost mystic kind of stereotypes and all, are very prevalent in this, and I feel like it just, instead of challenging those, just reinforces them. A lot of the Native characters are literally magic or like magical in some way, and they're all wise, they're all beautiful, they're all like noble and good. There's not a lot of like complexity to them, and it does nothing to dispel the stereotypes about like being, yeah, more connected to like the natural world, or having like this like inherent wisdom or anything like that. So that was one of the biggest problems in this for me. And also, because I'm not Ojibwe, I can't really speak to all of the specifics in here as far as Ojibwe customs or ceremonies or traditions, but I did find some other reviews, 3 or 4 I think other reviews from Native peoples, including at least one, I think 2. I will double check that, but at least one review from someone who is Ojibwe, who said that it does not resemble Ojibwe culture, and I will link all of the other reviews from Native reviewers that I have found in the video description below as well. Basically no one liked it or recommended it. And I agree, this has a lot of like really horrible, harmful stereotypes, and misrepresents Indigenous peoples, and doesn't it sound like from other reviewers reflect Ojibwe culture at all either. And I think the kind of magical elements that are woven into it are really problematic, because it kind of makes the Native characters set apart from other humans, and there is like kind of these stereotypes about like Native people being like magical or mystical, and it just confirms those, I feel like. So yeah, major problems with the Native representation in this book. Even the title, The Brave, is supposed to refer to the stereotype of a brave, or like a warrior, a Native warrior. And even that's just hugely problematic as well. As far as the OCD, counting compulsion kind of aspect of this book, I found the counting compulsion to be kind of unrealistic. It seemed totally unrealistic to me anyway. I am not an expert in like the mental health field or in OCD or anything like that. I'm just someone with OCD, but it didn't seem realistic at all to me. The only thing that seemed realistic was the anxiety he experiences because of this counting compulsion. But as far as the compulsion itself, it didn't really make sense to me. It didn't seem very realistic that from the time he was even a little kid, young enough that he wouldn't have been able to spell or count well enough for it to make sense that he counted the letters and everything said to him, to me, that he's done this and had this counting compulsion, and he's seen multiple professionals about it and no one has helped him or supported him in any way, and he's been kicked out of schools, and that seemed really unrealistic to me, that he's like been kicked out of multiple schools and he's never had any kind of 504 plan or IEP. Pretty sure he would fall under 504 plans, not IEPs, but you get the point. He hasn't had any kind of accommodations or support whatsoever in any setting, in school, at home, with his dad, anything. And I mean, I get that parents and teachers and all aren't always supportive of disabled students, but it seemed unrealistic to me that he's been to this many different schools and nobody's helped him. He's just gotten kicked out every time. And I mean, I don't know. I just found the counting compulsion kind of like over the top in a way too. It didn't seem realistic in the way it was portrayed. I hope that made sense. Anyway, and then, spoiler alert again, he ends up undergoing a kind of magical miracle cure towards the end through a spirit quest style ceremony that, from what I could find from the couple other Native reviewers I found, did not resemble Ojibwe traditions. I'm not Ojibwe, so I can't say about the specifics of that, but it didn't seem like it was informed by Ojibwe culture to me. It seemed just like stereotypes like you'd see in a Hollywood movie or something. It didn't seem authentic to me. And the miracle cure, magical cure, whatever kind of aspect of this is a real problem too. I mean, mental health is serious, and it's really a very difficult topic in Native communities. Many Native people, it's difficult to access mental health care, and it's kind of stigmatized, and but the rates of mental illnesses in Native communities and among Native youth are much higher than in kind of the general population. So the magical cure through a spirit quest ceremony really made me mad, because miracle cures and magical cures are this like trope in disability representation in books and movies and all anyway, and it's always problematic. Like, any kind of like miracle cure, magical cure kind of thing is problematic, okay, of any disability in media representation, because I'm trying to keep this kind of short, but so I don't want to get like too deep into like cure culture and disability theory and all, but the magical cure was definitely a problem, and the fact that it kind of didn't handle the mental health aspect well, I think is really dangerous, especially because this is being marketed as an Own Voices native book. So I had a huge problem with that because mental health is a really serious topic and really significant issue in Native communities. And then as far as the disability representation with Orinda, who has ALS and is chronically ill and uses mobility aids, basically everything was wrong with that too. So for one thing, the author just has no idea how wheelchairs work, because there's like all these problems with like what her wheelchair does and doesn't do and how her wheelchair is used in it. It just like lots of things just don't make sense. Like it glides easily over grass. Wheelchairs don't do that. As a wheelchair user myself, I can tell you pushing over grass is freaking hard. I avoid going over grass whenever I can because it's incredibly difficult to push through grass, especially like really lush green grass like it's described in the book. So things like that just were totally off and wrong. Like it's just, he doesn't know how wheelchairs work. And that's just one example. There were way more throughout it. But also Orinda, she firmly believes she's turning into a butterfly, but she's dying. She dies in the book. She may or may not have literally, actually, maybe, probably, not really sure, didn't totally understand that part, turned into a butterfly. I wasn't really sure if this was supposed to be a metaphor for death or we were supposed to literally believe she turned into a butterfly. But either way, disabled characters dying can't, how do I put this? Disabled characters dying is really difficult to do well and it not be an issue. It was not done well in this. So she dies and it's framed as being free from pain, from chronic pain, from disability, and from needing mobility aids, from using her wheelchair. Wheelchairs are freedom. I don't need freedom from my wheelchair. So the whole framing her death as freedom is a really common trope in disability representation, and it's really harmful, and it's kind of framed as like the better off dead than disabled kind of trope, which I hate. It makes me so angry. It devalues disabled people's lives and sends really harmful messages to disabled people, but really to abled people too, because abled people believe this then about our lives. And besides just it being framed as like her being free and all, it's also framed as this kind of it being a like happy thing to celebrate, because not only is she now free, but also everyone else around her learned about like how beautiful and magical life is and learned to like appreciate life and nature and like seizing the day and all more from her. And this is also another like really common trope in like sicklit and disability representation in books and movies and all. And again, it's really harmful. It's not okay to send these messages to people and to reinforce that kind of ableism. I mean, it's disabled people don't exist to teach you lessons or to be some kind of inspiration to you through our deaths. I don't even know what more to say, because honestly, there were so many problems in this book, and I'm trying to focus on just the like major ones. But all of the disability representation, both for Colin's counting compulsion, maybe OCD kind of thing that's never diagnosed, or never given a diagnosis in the book at least, and the disability representation with Orinda and her being this like inspirational figure through her death, and then also the Indigenous representation, the Ojibwe people and reservation life and all. Just none of it was done well at all. It was very problematic, very harmful, reinforced a lot of stereotypes. And yeah, I don't really know how to wrap this up. Please don't read this. Don't, or at least don't recommend it to people and all. Please don't give it to kids. I also thought a lot of the content in it was like way too mature for most middle grade readers. Middle grade is typically aimed at 8 to 12, and there's definitely stuff in this that I would never give to an 8-year-old to read. Maybe some 12-year-olds, but not even all 12-year-olds. But yeah, Orinda and Colin's relationship seems way too mature for their ages. He's 12. Her age isn't actually given, but it's kind of implied she's like the same age as he is. Their relationship just seems way too mature for 12-year-olds, and there's just other content with swear words. There's a reference to suicide, and it's framed as weakness, like suicide is equated to being weak, which is also very harmful. There's so much in this that I would not ever give to middle graders, but I also wouldn't recommend to anyone because of the harmful and quite frankly dangerous messages that this book sends. So yeah, don't really know how to wrap this up, but that is The Brave by James Bird. Thankfully, I have enjoyed most of the other books I've read this month for Middle Grade March. But yeah, if you want to talk about this book or Native or disability representation in books in general or anything else, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear from you, and I hope you like this video or maybe learn something from it, and subscribe if you want to see more. Thanks. Bye.